The train hissed to a stop under the pale canopy of London Paddington, the air thick with steam, rain, and the smell of wet stone. My suitcase felt heavier than it should have, perhaps because it carried the remnants of a life I no longer recognized. The city looked gray, unwelcoming, yet it was exactly what I needed. A place where no one knew my name, where the ghosts of betrayal couldn't follow me quite so easily. Richard used to say London was the city of second chances. The irony of that thought almost made me laugh. He had found his second chance here, in another woman's arms. I had come to find mine elsewhere, somewhere inside the silence that followed his lies. I pushed through the crowd, pulling my coat tighter. The November wind was biting. I was about to hail a cab when I noticed him, a tall man standing at the edge of the platform, dressed in a black coat that brushed the tops of his boots. He wasn't moving, just watching me as though he'd been waiting. Mrs. Hartley. His voice was low, careful. I froze. It had been months since anyone had called me by that name. Yes, I managed, though the word trembled slightly. He stepped forward and handed me a small envelope, sealed with dark red wax. My breath caught when I saw the familiar imprint, a rose encircled by an R. Richard's seal, my husband's seal. Who are you? I asked, but he had already turned away, vanishing into the flow of travelers before I could stop him. For a long moment, I stood there with the envelope in my hand, my pulse hammering in my ears. It couldn't be from him. Richard had made it clear that he never wanted to see me again after the night I confronted him. The night I found the photographs, the receipts, the woman's perfume on his collar. Still, curiosity burned hotter than pain. I broke the seal with my thumb and unfolded the letter inside. There was only one line written in Richard's unmistakable hand. You were never supposed to find out. That was it. No explanation, no apology, not even his signature. Just that cryptic confession that twisted like a blade in my chest. The words blurred as I reread them, over and over, trying to make sense of what they meant. Never supposed to find out what. The affair, or something else, something darker. Outside, rain began to fall in thin sheets. I shoved the note into my coat pocket and walked out of the station, my heels clicking against the wet pavement. London stretched before me, gray streets, fog curling around the lampposts, the echo of footsteps following me from nowhere. At the taxi stand, I caught sight of my reflection in a puddle. The woman staring back was pale and unfamiliar. I had left a version of myself behind in Brighton. The trusting wife who believed love was enough to anchor two people through the storms of life. What remained now was a shell with questions, dangerous questions. In the cab, I couldn't shake the image of that man. His face lingered in my mind, sharp, unreadable, with eyes like steel. How did he know me, and why would he deliver a note from a husband who wanted nothing to do with me? As the cab rolled through the rain-slick streets, I pressed a hand to my pocket, feeling the crumpled paper beneath the fabric. Somehow, I knew this message wasn't the end of Richard's deceit. It was only the beginning. And as we crossed the Thames, the city lights flickering like distant stars, a strange thought whispered through me. Maybe I hadn't come to London to escape my past. Maybe I had come to uncover it. The morning after I arrived, London greeted me with mist and melancholy. From my small flat in Bloomsbury, the view was nothing more than a blur of rooftops and chimney smoke. I wrapped my hands around a cup of tea, but the warmth did little to thaw the chill inside me. The note still sat on the table, its single sentence burning through the paper as though it held 100 unspoken truths. You were never supposed to find out. I read it again, whispering the words like a curse. What had Richard meant? He had already betrayed me. What else could there possibly be to hide? I decided to start with what I knew. Before the affair, Richard had spent months traveling to London for business meetings. He'd return with gifts, new suits, and a scent that wasn't mine. I had ignored the signs. How convenient that love can make you blind until it's too late. Now, with nothing left to lose, I began to retrace his steps. His old office had been sold, but the receptionist at the new firm recognized his name. Mr. Hartley, she said, raising an eyebrow. He used to consult for a private group near the Thames, some sort of investment syndicate. Her tone carried the faint disapproval of someone who knew more than she dared to share. That led me to a discreet building near Blackfriars Bridge, polished marble floors, glass doors, and a brass nameplate that read Ravensworth Holdings. The kind of place where people smiled without meaning it. I asked for him, pretending to be a former client, but the man at reception stiffened. "Mr. Hartley no longer works with us," he said, "and we have no further comment." The words were polite, but his eyes darted toward a security guard. I left before they could ask more questions. Outside, the fog had thickened. As I crossed the bridge, I felt watched. The city's pulse throbbed beneath the water below, a current that seemed to pull secrets into its depths. Then I saw him again, the same man from the train station. He stood at the far end of the bridge, his black coat catching the wind. I hesitated, then walked toward him. "You," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "you gave me that note. Tell me what you know about Richard." His expression softened, though only barely. "You shouldn't be asking these questions," he said quietly. "Richard was involved in things that could ruin more than reputations." "Then you know him." "I knew him once," he replied, "before he became someone else." The wind whipped between us. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Adrian," he said simply. "And that's all you need to know for now." I wanted to press him, but he turned and walked away, vanishing again into the London fog, as if he were a ghost summoned by my grief. Yet something about the way he said Richard's name lingered like regret. Later that night, I searched through Richard's old papers, which I'd kept despite wanting to burn them all. In the folds of an old travel itinerary, I found another clue, a letter addressed to C.L., written in his hand. "My dearest Clara, London will be ours soon. The transfer is set. Once it's done, she'll never suspect a thing." I froze. That was me. He had used my inheritance, the trust my father left me, to fund whatever secret business he'd been running with this woman, Clara. The betrayal cut deeper than any affair. It wasn't just love he had stolen, it was the foundation of my future. As I stared at the ink, one truth settled coldly in my chest. Adrian's warning wasn't about my safety. It was about something far more dangerous, the truth itself. The city outside my window seemed to breathe, whispering through the fog and rain. I thought of the Thames, how it swallowed secrets, how it reflected nothing but darkness. That night, as sleep refused to come, I made a decision. If London was where Richard's lies were born, it would also be where they ended. Days bled into nights as I unraveled the tangled threads of Richard's deceit. Each discovery left me hollow, yet sharper, like glass reforged in fire. The name Clara appeared everywhere, on bank transfers, hotel receipts, and invitations to private art exhibitions. She wasn't merely his lover, she was his partner in something much darker. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived, unsigned but written in a familiar, deliberate hand. "If you want answers, come to the Harcourt Gallery Friday at 8. He'll be there." The note trembled in my hand. Richard, after all this time, after every lie, he dared to face the world again. But this time, I wouldn't be the quiet, forgiving wife waiting by the door. I contacted Adrian. He met me at a quiet cafe near Charing Cross, his face half shadowed by the flickering candlelight. "So," he said softly, stirring his coffee without drinking it, "you're still chasing ghosts." "They're not ghosts if they still breathe," I replied. He regarded me for a long moment. "Then you deserve to know everything." What he told me made my blood run cold. Richard and Clara had built an elaborate investment fraud, using my inheritance as seed money. When the scheme began to collapse, they framed Adrian. who had been Richard's closest friend and partner. He had lost everything, his reputation, his firm, his name. "Why tell me this now?" I asked. "Because he plans to start again," Adrian said. "The Harcourt exhibition, it's not just an art show. It's a front for a new deal. He'll use the painting as a code to sell what's left of your money. And Clara, she's more dangerous than he ever was, but she doesn't trust him anymore." He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "If you want justice, you'll have to let them destroy each other." That night, I could hardly sleep. I thought of the woman I once was, the one who believed in Richard's promises. She would have wept, but the woman I had become was quiet, deliberate, and patient. Revenge, I realized, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was silent, like the slow turning of a key in a lock. Friday came cloaked in rain. I dressed in black velvet, my hair pinned up, and wore a mask of calm. The Harcourt Gallery shimmered with gold light and soft music. Wealth and deceit mingled like perfume. And there he was, Richard Hartley, laughing, radiant, utterly unrecognizable from the man I once loved. Beside him, Clara, elegant in crimson silk, her eyes scanning the crowd like a predator. On the wall hung the centerpiece of the evening, a large oil painting titled "The Perfect Wife." My stomach tightened when I saw it. It was me, or rather the memory of me. My smile, my dress, even the ring on my finger. He had painted me into his exhibition, his masterpiece of hypocrisy. As Richard raised his glass to toast the crowd, I slipped away to the back room. Adrian was already there, waiting, a small envelope in his hand. "The documents," he said. "These are the papers he plans to sell tonight. You switch them with these proof of his crimes." I took them, my fingers trembling. "What happens after?" "After," Adrian gave a grim smile. "Poison has a way of finding its rightful glass." When I returned, Richard was mid-toast. His words dripped with false charm. I moved through the crowd unnoticed, switching the envelopes with practiced ease. A moment later, Clara joined him, handing him a drink, her smile sharp as glass. Their glasses clinked. I turned away just as his laughter broke into a cough. The room erupted in chaos, shouting, gasps, the sound of a glass shattering on marble. I didn't look back. Adrian's words echoed in my mind as I walked out into the rain. Poison always finds its rightful glass. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace, not happiness, not triumph, just quiet release. The night air tasted like freedom. The rain fell harder that night, drumming against the cobblestones like 1,000 restless hearts. I stood beneath the awning across from the Harcourt Gallery, watching through the glass as flashing blue lights painted the walls. Sirens wailed, voices shouted, and the glittering guests who had once toasted Richard's success now fled like startled birds. I didn't move, I couldn't. Somewhere inside they were carrying his body away. Richard Hartley, brilliant, deceitful, charming Richard, was gone. The poison meant for me, slipped into the wrong glass, had finished what betrayal began. Clara was screaming as they led her out, her crimson dress soaked with rain and ruin. "It wasn't supposed to be him," she cried, mascara streaking down her face. It was for her. For a fleeting moment our eyes met. There was no hatred in me, only a strange, hollow pity. We were both victims of the same man, both shaped by his lies. But while she had lost her freedom, I had lost something far greater. My belief in love, in trust, in the idea that people were ever who they claimed to be. When the crowd thinned, I turned away. Adrian was waiting near the corner, as calm as if he had known this ending all along. "It's over," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "No, it's simply done. What's the difference? One ends with closure," he said softly. "The other ends with truth. You'll find only one of those tonight." He handed me an envelope, plain, sealed with no mark this time. "They found this in his jacket," Adrian said. "It was addressed to you." I hesitated before taking it. "Why give it to me?" "Because," he said, stepping back, "you deserve to decide what remains." and then, as always, he disappeared into the London mist, like a man made of smoke and sorrow. I walked along the Thames until my feet ached, until the city grew quiet again. The river shimmered with reflections of street lamps and tragedy. Finally, I sat on a bench beneath the bridge and opened the letter. Elena, if you're reading this, then you've already won. Perhaps that's what you wanted all along. Maybe it's what I wanted too, someone strong enough to finish what I could not. You think you know everything, but you don't. I didn't steal your money, I protected it. Clara wanted more than wealth, she wanted power. I became the villain to save you from becoming her next victim. You'll never believe me, and maybe you shouldn't. But remember, this nothing in London is ever what it seems. I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands. Lies, truth, half-truths. It no longer mattered. Richard was gone, and with him the version of myself that had needed answers. The wind carried the letter from my grasp, sending it spiraling into the river. I didn't chase it. Let the Thames keep his final words. That river had swallowed enough secrets. One more would not change its depths. In the weeks that followed, life moved quietly forward. The papers spoke of scandal, fraud, and betrayal, but not of love or redemption. Clara faced trial, Adrian vanished for good, and I remained free, yet forever marked by the city that had broken and rebuilt me. Sometimes I would walk along the embankment at dusk and watch the water glisten. I'd think of the woman I once was, the one who had arrived in London with a suitcase full of heartbreak. She no longer existed. In her place stood someone else, stronger, colder, but finally whole. One gray morning, I boarded a ferry heading east, away from the skyline that had haunted me. As the city receded into mist, I whispered to the wind, "Goodbye, Richard." For the first time, the words didn't hurt. And as the river carried me away, I realized that revenge had never truly been about him. It had always been about me, learning that freedom, no matter how painful, was the sweetest justice of all.